All right, so we're gonna jump into my segment here after Bill's legendary market update, and I'm gonna talk about some ETH levels and some Bitcoin levels, as well as just overall market sentiments in this market cycle so far. Right, the thing that I want to start out with is the total cryptocurrency market cap. And this chart alone. This chart is alone is why I hodl a very, very large portion of my portfolio and just refuse to sell it unless things are just way, way, way overvalued. Right. And the reason is because if you go back over the last 8 years, we're seeing very, very rapid exponential appreciation of the entire crypto space. So as long as you're in good projects, you would expect your portfolio to reflect that in the long term. It's really easy to get caught up, right, in these little red candles up here, which they're painful. They're painful, but it's easy to get caught up in that in a short term drop and forget about the long term trajectory of crypto. Over the last 8 years, we've been following this trend line, which is on a logarithmic scale equates to exponential growth, right? Exponential growth. Back here, our peak in 2017 was $835 billion in total cryptocurrency market cap. We've tripled that. We've tripled that since our last market cycle peak, right? So I'm not gonna sit here and tell you with 100% certainty this market cycle is over or this market cycle is going to continue to make all-time highs. What I will show you is that in the previous market cycle in 2017, we had two back-to-back corrections, a 47% dip followed by a 45% dip followed by a rally of about 583%, right? A bull market will try its best to shake you out. It will try its best to shake you out and get you to sell, right? So just keep in mind the overall total crypto space is on a very, very long-term bullish trajectory. Yes, we could come back down to this trend line and it would crush a lot of people's portfolios, right? We're about 50% away, a 50% drop away from this trend line. That would be devastating. Watching your portfolio drop by another 50, 60%, right? However, in the long term, we do expect this to come back, even if it does crash, right? And hopefully we get to see something like we saw last market cycle where it just goes vertical for a little while and we get to enjoy massive, massive gains, right? So just keep in mind that the total cryptocurrency space is very, very bullish in the long term if you zoom out enough. Now, this is a chart I want to bring up to your attention, and that it's altcoin market dominance. You can see that despite Bitcoin crashing, altcoin dominance has actually been increasing, and it's broken out of this multi-month accumulation phase, right? The ETH Bitcoin chart looks very, very similar because ETH is a big driver of this altcoin dominance going up. Now, what we've talked about since we were challenging breaking out of this structure was a pop up followed by a correction back down to create support on the downtrend, right? That is a bump and run pattern. That is a very common breakout reversal pattern, right? So far, we're just in this consolidation portion of this bump and run, and it's painful. But I want before I go selling all my altcoins, I want to make sure we hold support here. If we don't hold support here and we crash back into this consolidation phase, then you can make an argument for maybe selling off some altcoins, maybe preparing for a bear market, right? Things aren't looking great. But until then, this is actually still a very good thing. Altcoins are holding very strong against Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin is looking pretty rough right now. All right. So speaking of Bitcoin, I want to talk about the very specific key levels that I'm personally watching out for. I believe that Bitcoin can, not necessarily that it will, right? We are still kind of seeing a little bit of a trend line up here. We could very easily hold this trend and bounce back up to test 52.7K or even this downtrend line. But the level of support that I'm watching and that I could become a buyer at, not only for Bitcoin, but for the entire market, is $46,000. Why? Because that's the point at which you can no longer short Bitcoin and hide your liquidation point against its all-time high of 69K, right? You can no longer short it on 3x leverage once price drops below $46,000, right? While maintaining a liquidation point above its all-time high, right? So I would absolutely expect some sort of a bounce here at 46K, right? And if we get a bounce at 46K, we can either trade it in the short term, look for a retest of this downtrend line, and then take some immediate profits, right? Or we can just buy it and hold and hope that the market does a nice bump and run reversal pattern and goes back into making all-time highs, right? But the difference, the risk of buying at 46K is much less than the risk of buying at these all-time highs, right? If you bought at 60,000 plus, right, you're licking your wounds right now because Bitcoin's dropped a solid 30%, right? Now, I want to go to the ETH levels that I'm looking at. So ETH has this pattern of expanding volatility, which is usually very bullish, Now, ETH is still, despite the market circumstances, it's still over $4,000. It's still over 4K, and it's held 4K, which is a very big margin pressure level, multiple times. Yes, it did wick below it, but it's closed above 4K the vast majority of daily candles. Actually, I don't think we've closed a daily candle in a long time below $4,000, right? Now, the thing about this expanding volatility pattern is that the down volatility is also increasing, which can be extremely painful and very worrisome, right? And it can shake out a lot of people before it rips higher. My targets for Ethereum in short to midterm, is still $5,300, right? We're getting a bit of a correction, but we're still even on this trend line for ETH, right? A lot of people getting shaken out right now. We could very easily continue this pattern here all the way up to our previous all-time high and even up to 5,300, 5.3K. So I'm not letting this shake me out quite yet, right? Not letting this shake me out quite yet. The only worrisome thing about ETH right now, and it's not even that worrisome, because if we do crash back down to 4K, I'll buy at 4K, right? And if we crash down to 3,400, which is another big margin pressure level, another point of support, I'll buy down there as well. And this would just be still within this expanding volatility range, right? And where would the next expanding volatility lead us to? Probably 53. The next high would probably lead us to 5,300 in this pattern of expanding volatility. The only thing that's a little bit worrisome about ETH right now in the very short term is this bearish ascending wedge on the ETH Bitcoin chart. And that could mean one of two things. It could mean that Bitcoin's going to outperform ETH and rip to the upside, or it means that ETH could maybe correct, or some combination of the two. Usually, right, these bearish ascending wedges do result in a bit of a decrease in the ETH Bitcoin ratio. However, you can see that this one was a very big decrease. This one was another very big decrease. But the more recent one, this most recent bearish ascending wedge, was just a nice little correction. Just a nice little correction. We found support and continued higher, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if Bitcoin does take back a little bit of ground here. It wouldn't be surprising at all. I mean, if you just look at even just basic, I'm not an Elliott Wave guy or an Elliott Wave technical analyst, but I mean, you can just kind of see the wave. You make a big move with ETH, right? A little bit of a correction, another big move. We could easily get a correction back down to 0.083 or even further down to the structure, right? The consolidation structure, the multi-month consolidation structure for ETH Bitcoin before bouncing higher, right? So yes, ETH does look a little bit overextended against Bitcoin at the moment, but in the grand scheme of things, I'm still an ETH bull, right? And I'm still looking at the overall macro structure here of ETH breaking out against Bitcoin. Yes, there could be a short-term correction that brings us back down to 0.077 ETH Bitcoin, but I would expect another wave up, another leg up. These corrections can be brutally painful, like we're seeing in terms of the Bitcoin price and altcoin prices today. It's very painful. It's very uncomfortable, but it's that way for a reason. The market's trying to shake you out, right? So I'm personally not selling or cutting anything yet. I'm waiting at the very minimum. I want to see Bitcoin do this retest, right? And you can, The last thing I'll say is you can sell the retest of this downtrend line with confidence, because more often than not, right? What I mean by this retest of this downtrend line, more often than not, one of two things happen. Either it fails the retest and you can buy back lower, or it passes the retest, right? And comes in and finds support on the other side of the downtrend line, and you can still buy back lower, right? And even if it doesn't come all the way down, you can at least buy back on confirmation, right? At the same price, or just at a very small stop loss up here, right? As it heads back up higher, right? So selling this downtrend retest can be a very, very solid, applicable strategy to securing some stable coins and securing some funds, and giving yourself the opportunity to buy back cheaper in the future, regardless of what happens. The only situation here that you lose in is if Bitcoin just completely rips to the upside, in which case we just keep stop loss up here and get back in if it just rips up to the upside. All right, that's it from my segment today.
Token Metrics is a cryptocurrency investment platform that helps users leverage machine learning to become better crypto investors. Our in-depth analysis helps eliminate the emotions of investing, find profitable investment opportunities, and filters out scams. Learn more at tokenmetrics.com.